Hello everyone. So I'm Anra from Culture 24. 13 years is a very long time in digital terms. I began as a primary school teacher and then moved into digital. And the journey at Culture 24, 24-hour museum as it then was, we've spent those 13 years trying to connect what you do in galleries and in the wider museum sector with audiences. So I've been given the lovely task of trying to distill into 15 minutes challenges and opportunities offered by digital. And I could talk for absolutely hours and hours. So I'm going to pick, what I've done is just picked the things that have been the burning issues in our dealings with audiences and with you guys over the last 13 years. I'm going to throw those out there and hopefully that will lead to discussion through the rest of the day. So I'm going to look at two different fields. I'm going to start off looking at schools, children, and teachers. So formal learning, looking at some of the opportunities that digital offers in that sphere, looking at good practice, looking at the amazing freedom and potential that there is with what you're all doing for schools and teachers. And then I'm going to take it out of the formal learning sphere and look at adult learning, look at contemporary art, look at new practices, and highlight a particular example there. And finally, the two key challenges that I'm going to put before you apply to both, to formal, to informal. They apply to the two different, I look at digital in sort of very practical terms in two different ways, and I'm going to start with the schools one. Digital gives us, at the most basic level, a delivery mechanism. It gives us a discovery mechanism, a delivery mechanism, a mechanism for interpretation, the hardware, the software, the practice. It does sound basic, but it is the most incredible opportunity for learners and for teachers that there has been. So I'm going to look at that whole delivery and interpretation side, and then when I look at the adult work, look at the new practice that just could not have existed without digital, where digital is the medium completely. And the two challenges will apply across both of those spheres as well. So I'm going to leap straight in. It would be really interesting to know how many people in the room have come across. Can you just put your hand up if you've seen Culture Street? Hardly any. It's a tragedy. So Culture Street is the most fantastic project, culturestreet.org.uk. It has been going for years and years. It used to be called Artisan Cam, and you might have come across it in that way. Now, I'm highlighting Culture Street as an example of fantastic practice, not because it's perfect. Now, it's run by Keith Alexander, who I've known for years through our work. And Keith won't mind me saying that when you look at the website, it's had the journey that lots and lots of our resources have had. It's had project funding, it's grown organically, it's developed organically, it's got bits bolted on from all over the place. So he's facing a lot of the same challenges that we're facing with our digital offer. So I'm not saying that this is best practice in the sense that it's the most beautiful website there ever was, but it's the content that is absolutely key here. So what Culture Street does is it takes art and artists into the classroom. So it gives children and teachers, in a way I'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment, it opens up the practice that's happening in studios. It began with a simple idea of getting a camera into an artist's studio and filming what went on. So it takes the art, it takes the artist, but it does it, one of the most wonderful things about it is that it does it with the audience. It takes the audience to the artists as well. So Keith makes films, it's full of films, and a lot of those, as you can see from that one on the homepage, are made with children. They're co-produced with children, and that gives them it helps them to identify with the art and the artist and the issues that we're talking about. So it's one of the strengths. Now, this is an example of one of the pieces of content. Max Hattler, a filmmaker, does animation. This The piece of art, Spin, that is under discussion in this particular resource is there. I'm showing you this because it encapsulates what teachers, Keith's worked for years with teachers, and he understands exactly what they want. So they want to see the art that you're talking about, and they want to have that artist's voice accessible to the children there and then. And that's very simple. It's not rocket science, but this is something that digital allows us to do in just such an unprecedented way. And what Culture Street does so beautifully is it uses simple tricks and techniques for serving that content in ways that are useful for children and teachers. So this is a question and answer session with the artist, and you can see just about, I know the type's small, I'm afraid, but the questions underneath, just very simply, you can dip in and out. You can click, where you click on the question, it jumps to that part of the film. And it's the children asking the questions, and then you have Max. You can go off and watch it yourselves. But it's simple, but it's so, so useful, and you see it happening so rarely. So these resources are designed in such a way that a teacher could take the whole lot. It's hugely structured. There's a great big framework there. They could take the whole lot, if they wanted to, and have a whole term's work, or they can dip in and take 2 minutes. You know, this is 1 minute 45 seconds. It's not linear in a restrictive way. So this is, I'll let you go off and look at it. This is another example from Culture Street of the breakdown, these bite-sized chunks of workshops. This one's around digital photography. That's a photograph taken by these Key Stage 3ers. As you can see, again, very small, but this is broken up into bite-sized chunks of the workshops. You can dip in, you can dip out. And it actually tackles a lot of really heavyweight ideas and inspiration and processes. That film, Spin, that I just showed, is really heavy subject matter, but it's presented in such a way that's useful, usable and fit for purpose. It also encapsulates, it's not all perfect, there are real issues, and having a look at Culture Street, for instance, keeping up with the technology, there are over 500 films, lots of them were made in Flash. If you try and look at that Max Hattler one, you can't see it on your iPad. Schools are all using iPads now, so Keith is going back and he's converting the film formats. So it's an ongoing struggle, and that is one of the challenges. Because this content has a long shelf life, and it's hard to do the future-proofing, but it's still, nonetheless, great practice. The next thing, the next huge opportunity, of course, is your digital collections. This digital gives us the opportunity to embed the use of your digital collections in teaching and learning in all sorts of ways, and it hasn't happened yet. We haven't cracked it yet. We've digitized millions and millions of collection items, and they're hidden away in silos. They're not fit for purpose at the moment for schools, for teachers, for learners. Most of them, some of them are. They're not discoverable. I've got the Rijksmuseum up here as an example of good practice. I know it's not fair that they've had lots of money and they've just done this from scratch, but if you haven't looked at the Rijksmuseum digital collection, have a look at the way that that's displayed. It's fully responsive, works across different platforms, openly available, high resolution, beautifully tagged, beautifully described. It's a lovely one to go and have a look at. Now I'm going to slip in my project in the moment because I have the chance. Culture 24 is working as part of the Arts Council's Strategic Commissioning Fund under Renaissance on something called Connecting Collections. So we are trying, in our small way, to tackle this issue of your digital collections not being available in ways that schools and teachers are finding and are able to use, and in ways that are connected to the journeys that they might want to take through them. And we're working with Culture Street, who are making films. We are going to create a collection of collection items We're working with Collections Trust, who are supporting the data side of that. We're working with Arts Award as a way to reach audiences, to try to encourage schools and museums and galleries doing their arts awards, providing arts award support to think about digital. And we're going to surface these digital collection items with supporting films, with supporting editorial, with your games, your interactives, your teachers' resources, anything that you produce for the schools at Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 on a new version of our old children's site called Show Me. It's under development at the moment. That's just a designer's screenshot full of Latin, as you can see. But just to give you an idea, what we're trying to do is to tackle the issue of the collections being in silos, of the collections not being known about, and trying to give children and teachers pathways through that. There's lots more to say about that, but no time. My contact details are there, and if you'd like your collection items to be included, get in touch with me. I'm just pulling those together now. So, for schools and learners, in a slightly large nutshell, this is what I think we need to do. We've got to ensure that our digital content is fit for purpose. That's really, really key. Teachers want to be able to download your collection items. They want to be able to take them into their own environments. They want them with enough context to be usable and useful. They need that factual information. As somebody who works packaging your content, I have to say it's really, really hard to find the basic information around a subject. And I'll use this example because you are gallery educators and this is more museumy, but World War I, huge investment in digital resources around that. Can I find a web page on any museum website that simply says what happened in the war for children? It's not there. It's really, really difficult to find some of that basic information that really meets their audience needs. So we need pathways through your content. We need to start thinking about the subjects that people are looking for as the brands, rather than the museums and the galleries themselves. And we need to raise the profile, which we can only do collectively, of this content. You've got this amazing content, we just need to get it embedded in teachers' and learners' minds as a potential resource that they could be using. That's marketing and promotion. So, stepping away from schools for a moment, you have to have a cat if you're talking about digital, and on to Born Digital. New practice brought about because of digital. And the example I wanted to throw at you is the Photographers Gallery. We've got Janice here. I didn't know she was going to be here. It's been lovely to meet her today, who is head of learning at the Photographers Gallery. So she will be able to talk about it more when we open up to discussion. But the Photographers Gallery has something called The Wall. If you haven't been, The Wall is a high-resolution, great big screen within the gallery. I think it's about 3 meters square, something like that. This is The Wall in situ. The Wall has its own curator, digital curator. The Wall is about... I find it fascinating. I think it's a lovely example for us to look at because it raises all sorts of issues. It's a way of presenting digital art. It's a way of presenting new practice. It puts digital right at the centre of the gallery. And of course, Photographers Gallery, photography is one of the subjects that digital has had huge impact upon. And we all think we're photographers now. But that's not the be-all and end-all. But having that wall in the middle of the gallery has a huge impact upon the working practice, upon the teaching and learning that goes on within the gallery, upon the commissioning, upon the exhibition planning. There's a lot of information on the Photographers Gallery website about that. And one of the other projects, again at the Photographers Gallery, that is linked, of course, to what happens on the wall, is the Instagram takeover And if you haven't had a look at this, this is worth having a look at, because the gallery is thinking about the ways to take the artwork outside and to have a dialogue around, as Rebecca was saying, it's around dialogue between audiences and artists. So have a look at Instagram. First challenge, I've got 2 minutes for my challenges. Attention share, competition and discoverability. We're not in Google enough. The Tudor test, lots of art on Tudors, none of those results above the scroll, when you search for Tudors, are from museums or galleries. None of them. And that's a huge challenge for us. With artists in mind, I looked for portraits. One result is from a gallery, the National Portrait Gallery, above the fold, again, in Google. None of those at the top. If you look for portraits, this is where audiences expect to find us, and we're not there. When you do, it's the Lucian Freud. It's a page about exhibitions on the National Portrait Gallery, which is great, but the exhibition's finished, and it doesn't mention the digital collection anywhere. It's an opportunity missed. Sorry, National Portrait Gallery. I love you. Second challenge is how we understand what our users are doing. So if they find us, what are they doing with our content? We're just at the beginning of finding out about this, and it's absolutely crucial. Culture 24 is working on action research with these lovely people. This was our second phase. We're just about to start the third phase. The challenge for you all is to work out what it is that what do you want your audiences to be doing with your digital content? What does success look like? Is it about Facebook likes? Is that popularity or engagement? Is it about Twitter followers? Does that really matter? Is it about the depth of engagement? That Instagram takeover doesn't have huge numbers. I think 3,500 following at the moment. But if the depth of engagement, if your aims for that project are to have people speaking to the artists opening up their practice, that might be fantastic. You might be aiming at 500 people. So understanding engagement and your users so that you can plan, you can create your content with your users' needs in mind, again, is a huge challenge, but something that lots of organisations are starting to think about and talk about. There we go.